After around 50 hours, I've 100%ed Kirby Star Allies. I collected all the puzzle pieces, beat every hidden world, and conquered all the optional challenges, including Soul Melter EX mode. So let's discuss if this Kirby title is worth experiencing years later. As always, this review will contain spoilers. The story of Kirby Star Allies starts with a dark crystal exploding, with fragments called Jamba Hearts landing on planet Popstar. The Dark Hearts infect King Dedede and Meta Knight along with many of the other residents of Popstar, but Kirby is hit with a pink heart. With this heart, Kirby can befriend most enemies and starts to free the residents of Popstar from the Jamba Heart's influence. Kirby will fight his way through Popstar and eventually find himself in a fortress called Jamba Station, where Kirby encounters the three generals attempting to take over the planet, named Francisca, Flamebird, and Zan Partisan. Kirby, along with his new friends, go on a campaign to save not just Popstar, but many of the other planets from the influence of these generals, eventually finding the cause of these fragments, a priest called Hyness, who seeks to revive a dark and ancient god. The story on the surface is simple, but the developers hid paramount details regarding the narrative. When hitting the pause button during boss fights, the game explains significant information never told to the player, such as how every boss in the Kirby universe being gods who have been reincarnated based on whether they had positive or negative energy. The game's true final boss is a non-canon fight against the likely progenitor of all these gods called the Void, which is just plain insanity at this point. I know Kirby is powerful, but this took the lore to the Kirby universe to a whole new another dimension. It's kind of fitting considering one of the optional modes are called Heroes from Another Dimension. I'm not a fan of keeping this stuff in hard to find situations like pausing the menu during boss fights, but this is just a wild addition in my opinion. Regardless, Kirby games may seem bright and colorful, but there are many mature narratives underneath it all. It's still a simple story at its core, but it has enough long-reaching results to make it interesting. Kirby Star Allies operates mostly the same of all the other entries within the Kirby franchise. Kirby can consume and copy the powers of almost anything he eats, the exception being a small selection of creatures that don't have powers. You can only use one power at a time, and if you take a critical hit, the power is removed, but you can reabsorb the power by consuming the star that falls out of Kirby when it's removed, or you can remove it manually. Kirby himself comes with the same standard powers as in previous entries. He can fly and must puff out the air before he can use any other ability, but without a copy ability, his only offensive attack is shooting stars that appear during battle. The stars are shot in a horizontal path, and depending on how many Kirby sucks in, will determine the strength of the attack, which can also pierce enemies. The last ability that becomes essential during the game's endgame is the blocking and dodging mechanics. With this, Kirby can limit damage to an extent, but with some attacks are unblockable and they're very easy to telegraph, such as high-powered beams. Using the thumbstick while guarding will allow Kirby to perform a dodge, but as with the blocking, this is also limited. Certain attacks can't be dodged. The most useful skill in the game is Kirby's friending ability. Kirby can friend up to 3 allies either from the overworld or in dream palaces that offer unique allies not found in any world. Each ally comes with a unique ability that can sometimes be further enhanced by other abilities within your friend pool to add elemental powers for environmental puzzles or increase attack power. They also add unique abilities within environmental hazards, such as the ability to shock enemies if they use water or even freeze them. Kirby can absorb his allies' abilities, but this removes them from his party. He can shoot them back as stars, remove an ally manually, or replace the ally by friending another enemy. As for the Dream Palaces, these are unique zones in the overworld that allow Kirby to friend a unique ally such as Meta Knight, King Dedede, or classic characters from the Kirby franchise. You can only use one Dream Palace per level completion, with 4 Dream Palaces in total throughout the game, and you can only have a maximum of 3 allies. Now you can play the entire game cooperatively, but I played the game solo. Your allies are not immortal and can die in battle. If killed, you have a limited amount of time to revive them, but only with half health. If they are crushed, they cannot be revived, and this is an instant death. Kirby himself cannot be revived if killed when you're playing solo. I'm not sure about cooperative because again, I played solo. You can share healing items in a way of kisses, with anyone who obtains a piece of food able to share it with anyone by simply walking up to them to trigger the animation, with the best quality food giving the most health. Your allies are important to environmental puzzles throughout Kirby Star Allies. Some puzzles require a selection of allies, but the game thankfully gives you those powers before these encounters or when during the optional dungeons. Each level has either a special puzzle piece, a hidden switch to unlock a hidden world, or both, and you're told this beforehand with icons appearing on the level's portraits before you enter it. This also includes upcoming boss fights within the stage. The puzzle pieces are used to unlock cosmetic portraits that honor past Kirby games. There are two types of puzzle pieces, blue which are common and can be obtained on repeat, and rainbow which are unique in certain stages. You can only get one rainbow piece in each stage that has them, and they fit into a very specific pink slot into the portraits. The stages themselves have a decent variety of level designs that capitalize on Kirby's abilities and build on the friend system. The game does have a generally good job of conveying when you'll need an ability, such as placing a mini-boss before an optional environmental hazard, or just having pedestals or respawning NPCs ready for what is to come and when you'll need them. It's a great system to enjoy players having the necessary equipment beforehand and not forcing them to play through a stage with the exact powers. If you find yourself in an optional puzzle world labeled with a door with a red star, the game provides you with all the tools necessary to beat it within that dungeon. There are 4 worlds in total, not counting the final boss level, which is separated into its own world in the core campaign. There are optional hidden worlds that are unlocked using buttons in various worlds. Like the rainbow puzzle pieces, these are showcased before entering the level. The overworld map is a detailed hub that is basic to navigate but offers more freedom to explore than a traditional selection screen. You can dash between worlds easily, and each overworld map is detailed. If you want to select a specific stage, just hit X, find the world you're looking for, and then teleport to that location. This guide also showcases which worlds have hidden puzzle pieces and hidden world switches in case you need to collect them or you miss them. The enemy variety tends to repeat itself, especially with the mini-boss encounters, but given that you can copy and friend most of the NPCs in the game, it is forgiven. You have ample options for team creation with this enemy pool. The only real problem I had with the gameplay as a whole is that touching an enemy causes damage. This is an odd system that I wish would phase out with modern games, but it's still here, and it's especially problematic when things get chaotic during the boss fights. There is a healthy array of boss fights from classic Kirby characters to original fights. Most are easy to dispose of, but some can be extremely difficult to keep track of. This is due to the amount of carnage that is happening on screen. Sometimes animations will get so wild that the frame rate will drop as well, but thankfully this is only in rare circumstances. But the final fights can be hellish due to the vast number of things that are happening on screen. Be prepared to get lost in all the animations. It's beautiful to look at, but then the game just simply can't keep up. Surprisingly, the CPUs are very smart. They'll actively know what to do in every puzzle situation and will navigate the environment with ease. If you get too far along, they'll instantly teleport to your location. They're not perfect though. In combat, it's common for them to hold back and not be as efficient in dealing damage as opposed to a real person. I guess this is for balancing reasons, but regardless, it can be frustrating when they're just standing around. They're also not really good when it comes to sharing powers, because I would hold up the thumbstick, which triggers the power sharing animation, and sometimes they'll take a whole 30 seconds before they realize they need to share powers with the other allies. They'll do it with you very efficiently, but when it comes to other NPCs, it takes a while for them to trigger. But these are minor issues for companions who mostly did everything very efficiently. Each stage ends with a bonus minigame where the player jumps on a spring, and if done correctly, you get a certain amount of bonus items such as heart and star pieces in order to complement the level that you reach. I believe there are 6 or 5 levels, but for the most part, I always reach level 2 and 1, so I got the maximum yield. The stars are just like coins. You collect 100 and you'll get an extra life. Eventually you'll get so many lives that this will become pointless, so I don't really know why this is here. I guess it's just to keep things engaging. The main campaign isn't that long. It took me around 5 hours to complete and collect everything. Completing all the portraits, on the other hand, will definitely test your mettle, because you're going to have to repeat some of the stages over and over in order to maximize your yield for that. Once done, the game goes into full Kirby mature mode and unlocks a sea of optional content that definitely was not tailored for children when it comes to skill level. The first is the multiplayer mini games. There are 2 in total and they can support up to 4 players, but you can play with CPUs. The first is called Star Slam Heroes. It's basically baseball with a comet. You charge the meter multiple times to determine your strength and then hit the comet when a dial appears on screen to determine your accuracy. The player who hits the comet the furthest wins. The second is Chomp Champs, where you chop wood and must avoid the worms, striking the wood on the side without the worms. The player to chop the most wood wins. Each minigame has 3 difficulties, and like I stated, you can play with CPUs. The last 3 options include Guest Star Allies Go, where you play through a sizable part of the main campaign in one go as one of the NPCs that Kirby can friend. You can't pick Kirby as an ally, but it is definitely a pretty good optional mode. Heroes in Another Dimension is an alternative non-canon campaign where you take on 5 challenge arenas. The first 4 levels are complete with 30 hearts to obtain in each, 120 in total, and the final challenge arena is against the penultimate final bosses, but stronger variants of them. For you to get the good ending, you need to collect all 120 hearts, and for you to get the bad ending, I believe you have to have less than 100 hearts. Either way, this is also how you unlock the final friend NPC. These are good challenge arenas that highlight the full extent of the NPC various abilities and the friend system, often require you to use them in ways you never did in the main campaign. The only issue is that you have to beat the entire stage before the hearts collected will count, and if you already got the good ending or the bad ending, well, if you got the good ending, you'll have to replay the entire campaign for you to get the bad ending. You can revisit any stage to collect any remaining hearts, so thankfully it doesn't have to be done in one go. Also, the game doesn't tell you in which area you're missing the heart in each stage, so it can be a bit confusing without a guide. Like the core campaign, the abilities needed to complete each challenge are given to you and shown through the environmental tells, so you don't need to guess too much of what is needed of you. The final set of challenges come in the way of the ultimate choice. This is a boss rush mode modeled after Super Smash Bros. Melee's All-Star mode. Players can choose Kirby or any of his powers to start, or play as any of the NPCs Kirby can friend, including any combination of allies with the exception being Kirby as an NPC. There are 8 levels of difficulty in total, with the final being available after being the hardest current option called Soul Melter EX. Each increase in difficulty adds more boss fights and more puzzle pieces as reward if completed. If you lose, you're sent back to the beginning and you lose all the puzzle pieces you've collected. Players are given 6 recovery items at the start of each run and can be used before each battle, but they do not replenish. You can use NPCs who can spawn food to recover health, but only during fights, not in the rest area. In fact, all abilities are ceased until you enter the boss fight. The boss fights here are non-canon, but this is the only way to face the game's true final boss. This is entirely optional, and the game caps 100% completion at Soul Melter and not Soul Melter EX. Soul Melter EX provides the ultimate challenge with the hardest boss encounters such as the parallel bosses and add-in adds to the mini boss encounters. In addition, you are given 1 set of healing items that range in potency instead of just being the best quality as you would get in Soul Melter regular, leading to the true final boss encounter against Void, which is non-canon unfortunately. Overall, if you plan to complete everything, it'll probably take you around 40 hours, which is a lot, but a lot of the things to get that 100%, especially if you already get the 100% completion, is collecting those portrait puzzle images, which just means grinding a lot of these puzzle pieces. The game does include a jukebox to listen to all the game's soundtracks and a theater to rewatch the cutscenes, but for some reason it doesn't include all the cutscenes, so it only includes the cinematics, so it's a little weird. Or you can replay the credit score attack minigame, which is completely just cosmetic. You go into that just fighting a bunch of enemies. To play with the highest score wins, and there's really no reward to it. Overall, it's still a very enjoyable experience, and I had a lot of fun exploring the world that was presented here. Kirby games are notorious for having exceptional presentation, and Kirby Star Allies does not disappoint. The game is teeming with incredible character animations, details, and beautiful visuals. I mean, it's just wild to look at anyone who came up with all of these designs. The character models are so expressive and detailed, right down to the models mimicking Kirby's iconic dance in a variety of ways. The level of perfection is shared between the game's musical score and overall just visual design. Like I said, I cannot give this game enough enough praise. It's definitely designed in a timeless way that even years later still looks better than most AAA modern games. Honestly, it blows me away of how Kirby games continue to use the same visual techniques but continue to delight and just soar in terms of creativity over the years. It's absolutely beautiful. Kirby Star Allies is a wonderful game for both kids and adults. The main campaign offers a lot of great stages, entertaining boss fights, and a solid experience for both solo and cooperative play. However, those seeking a challenge, you're definitely going to get this here when you want to complete all the optional challenge rooms such as Hero in Another Dimension and the bosses in the Ultimate Choice. I thought that Kirby and the Forbidden Land was the first game that really tried to exercise the idea that Kirby games aren't just simple affairs meant for children, because that game is incredibly intense when you try to get 100% completion, but it seems that HAL Laboratory has been doing this for years, and it definitely shocked me here. I did not expect to actually put in the work to 100% this game. I thought it would have just been a easy breezy experience, but instead it definitely put me in the most gamer mood I could possibly imagine to test my skills, my talents, to ensure that I had the best team composure. So it really shows that these games are meant for more than just kids. Yes, there is a kid element there with the main campaign, but it definitely shows that there are a lot of elements that give Kirby that mature look that people who are seeking a challenge won't be disappointed here. Either way, if you want another Kirby game after completing Kirby and the Forbidden Land, you can't really go wrong with Star Allies as well.